So the path of self-discovery, super cool stuff. Here we go. Our unconscious mind will keep throwing up these ideas, and you have to learn to deal with them because they're going to keep popping up. Now, some are safe and some are dangerous, but you have to act on them. The cool thing about them is that they're the keys to self-discovery. They're the keys to figuring out who you are. But the problem with them is that they threaten to change you, right? The thing that they're great for is also the thing that they're bad for. Let me give you an example. If you're a drug addict and you've hit rock bottom and you go, oh God, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm never gonna get out of this. I'm gonna die like this. And something comes up inside them and goes, right, I've hit rock bottom, time to change. And they go and join a 12-step program and they kind of realize, oh, I can't be in those environments anymore. I can't be around those people anymore because otherwise I'll get back into those same self-destructive patterns. I have to get rid of those people from my life and I have to bring in these new people in order for me to live a more full human experience, right? So you have... And so they have to kill off these relationships in order to develop these new relationships that are going to help them move on in their life and change in the way that their mind is telling them to. Now, it's a dangerous thing to do if you don't understand how to interpret those ideas that are coming up inside of you. So if you're that drug dealer or that drug addict and they have that same urge, they've hit rock bottom and they go, man, I need to make a change. They don't understand that urge properly. Maybe they don't join a 12-step program and maybe they go, man, I've been smoking a lot of meth. Maybe I should just smoke some crack. And so they make that change, but it doesn't really satisfy the urge. That's not really what that was about. They make this small change, maybe it satisfies them for a little while, and then they're like, oh God, this is the same, why am I doing this, right? And so if you don't understand how to interpret those ideas, then you can end up making the wrong moves. Now, the cool thing is when you want to make change, what you're really looking for is a mentor. You're looking for someone who has been there and done it. Now, mentors are people who understand the past, who have been through these things and know how to, and they can help you identify who you are right now, and they can help you identify ways of making changes, right? They can give you an idea of how to make that change. In the past, they've been things like, they've usually been religious figures, like mystics, priests, medicine men, stuff like that. So for example, if you were going to start a new business, you might want to talk to other people who have started their own businesses to kind of figure out the sort of the pitfalls, the benefits, how they felt about it, what they did, how to learn from their mistakes, yada, 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 right? Same goes for self-discovery, same goes for self-development. You gotta find those people. Now, the other thing mentors do is they often help us through these different thresholds of life. The main ones that kind of cut across the board, like in every culture, would be birth, naming, puberty, marriage, and death. So those are the main ones where across a culture there will generally be, those are generally considered the main thresholds of life. And they're usually marked with some kind of ritual or ceremony, and that ritual is designed to help us change our mindset moving forward. Does it help to change the way we think, to prepare us for the next stage of our lives, to prepare us for the next stage of our development as human beings. So with a marriage ceremony, what you're looking for, generally speaking, you'll have an officiant who's there and they explain why we're having the ceremony, the new responsibilities, the new commitments that you're making, and you're making those commitments in front of your community, usually your friends and family, And so that is sort of part of it, that you making these commitments and in front of everyone is kind of showing people how serious you are about making that commitment. And like during the ceremony, they may offer advice, they may offer, support, blah, 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 to help you move forward. And that's kind of what a marriage ceremony is for. All of those things collectively help prepare your mind to change moving forward, so that you can adapt to your new situation, so that you become a better person. So you change your mindset because of the ritual that you put yourself through. Now that's true of every one of those stages. Now, the first half of our lives are usually spent trying to figure out how to live. And the second half of our lives are trying to figure out how to deal with death. Those tend to be the big challenges of our lives. How do we, when we're young, the challenge is like, oh man, how do I make sure all my clothes are clean, make sure the house is clean, make sure that I can do all my schoolwork, make sure I can do all these, you're just trying to figure out how to do all those things, and you have people help guide you and figure that stuff out. As you get older, once you've figured all that kind of stuff out and you're settled, the big challenge in your life becomes you can see death in the distance, and it's like, how do I come to terms with and deal with this thing that's coming towards me that I can't stop, and that will happen and will happen to all of us. That becomes the big challenge of our lives. Now, what stories do is they help supply the symbols or ideas that help us to realize what's coming next and give us a pathway of how to deal with what is coming next in our lives at every stage. They help you move forward. And if you have a lack of that kind of spiritual guidance, it can lead to you being quite neurotic, where you end up fixated on youthful ideas of yourself. So let's take love for an example. The love you experience at 15 is very different to what it is at 25, which is very different to what it is at 35, So if you are one of these people who's fixated on the idea of young love and sort of the kind of love you have when you're finding a partner when you're 15 versus what it is when you're 35, those things are very different. And the problem with trying to find that youthful thing is that it won't exist amongst your peer group. And so because you can't find that satisfaction from your peer group, you try and find it in other areas of your life, usually in more primal desires, let's say. So you try and find it there, and guess what? That doesn't work out either. That's kind of what happens when you have that kind of lack of guidance. You can't move past these certain things that are coming in your life. And if you can't find these ideas from within you, if this stuff doesn't bubble up naturally within you, then you need to get them. You need to get these ideas from rituals, put yourself through those processes in order to grow up and develop. Because otherwise you just stay the same forever. You become one of these creepy forever children. You're not interested in being that. Now, by refusing to develop, to go through these rites of passage, what you end up doing is you cut yourself off from the society at large. By refusing to grow up, you then become this separate group. You become this separate thing. And what happens, and that happens in society all the time. And what you end up having is, instead of one big society that all agrees on how things should be done, you get separated off into smaller communities of people, and they all kind of fight for dominance. They're all trying to fight for dominance, and it's all driven by ego and sort of self-preservation and self-determination, right? So these people who sort of gain societal independence, let's say, they try and keep all of the benefits from society for themselves. This need for everything to be about me, is driven by ego, and all it does is, like, that philosophy turns you into a tyrant. Someone who tries to keep everything for themselves and nothing for anyone else is a tyrant.